Hi, I'm Lexi Layton.
And I'm Hudson McCabe.
And today we're going to talk about our E-Citation system that we have developed over the course of this year for the Baylor Police Department and the different tools that we plan on implementing it and how we've gone about this process.
So just some background, we looked at helping create this E-Citation system because we saw a couple problems in the physical ticket system that they're using right now.
Right.
Mainly in cost, efficiency, and error. And that's why we're looking at implementing these systems is to reduce these problems. So for cost, the cost of having physical tickets and making errors on those tickets is very high. And that's where our system reduces the amount of paper being used, but it also reduces the amount of errors being made. So going into it, there are three major aspects that we need to look at when we're looking at feasibility.
Right.
And those are technical, economic, and organizational.
Do you want to touch on technical?
Sure. So with technical feasibility, the main thing we're going to be looking at is officer familiarity with the application. While the officers have had experience using computers and other softwares like that, this new system is going to be a little different than what they're used to. And that's why we're looking at implementing a training program to help make sure that the officers are comfortable with the system before they go out into the field.
Right, and with economic feasibility, this is definitely a system that's going to come with an array of costs, including development cost, annual operating costs, but it all actually has its benefits as well. So while we did have these costs such as a salary for a 24/7 technical support or roadside assistance, that will all come to around $400,000 of cost, but the benefits that arise from this system come to $475,000. So there's a $75,000 difference, and we definitely predict that it will be even better than that as this system is implemented way into the future.
Mm-hmm. So lastly, we're going to look at organizational feasibility. And the main things we're looking at is whether or not it aligns with the strategy they're currently using. And we believe it does because we think that increasing efficiency and making a better overall system and process is something that Baylor Police Department is very adamant about.
Right.
Also, our senior management is going to be Brad Wigtill.
Yes.
And he's going to help implement this new system and help us spread its use throughout the police department.
Because he is the BU Chief of Police, and he will also serve as the project champion in this case.
Mm-hmm. The major functional requirements, there are going to be 5 of them. And with an e-citation system, obviously writing and issuing a citation is going to be a very crucial aspect for this. But there are other ones that are important too. Accessing citizen violation history, contacting another police officer, contacting technical support, and calling roadside assistance are all going to be things that our system are going to be implementing and are all things that we're going to push on our homepage to make sure officers are able to get to quickly and efficiently.
Absolutely. But we could not go into depth for each of these functional requirements, but we did talk about 4 of them in our use cases. So we went through the steps, the alternative courses. So the 4 that we really dived into deep were writing and issuing a citation, accessing citizen violation history, contacting another police officer, and contacting technical support.
So this is our example use case. So as you can see, our trigger from it is going to be external. It's going to be started when the officer pulls over a citizen and starts issuing the ticket, but there are also going to be some preconditions for it.
Absolutely. So for the system to work, the Waco police officer identity must be authenticated just because we don't want someone random being able to issue a citation. And then also that the violator has a valid driver's license and a license plate number. So those are some 2 post conditions that we implemented in this use case.
And then kind of a summary of our normal course. The normal course is just going to be what happens when the officer issues a ticket. So normally they're going to log into the system, they're going to get validated, they're going to fill out the ticket, and they're going to print it and hand it to the citizen. But in case one of those things changes or there's some sort of alternative course, some of those things may be like...
If they forget to fill out a specific field.
Mm-hmm. Or if the login credentials they used aren't valid, it'll ask them to re-enter their credentials and then validate them the second time if they're correct then. So next we're going to look at the data flow diagram.
The data flow diagram. Okay, so the 4 main process steps in our data flow diagram were actually our 4 use cases that we've created earlier in this project. So I'm not going to go into depth about them as we had just talked about one of them, but we do have 2 main external entities, a police officer and a citizen, as that's where a lot of the information and data is coming from. So for example, from the police officer, data that is coming from them to writing and issuing a citation would be their officer number, their officer name, officer last name, and then something that would be coming from that process back to them would be their authorization to actually create a citation. And then eventually that citation is going to go into the Waco Police Department database, which we also have multiple databases represented in this data flow diagram, and the citations will be stored there.
So we also made a class diagram going into this, and our class diagram is made up of 7 entities, and it's basically showing the attributes that make up those entities and the relationships between them. So just for example, between the officer and citizen entity, you'll see that there's a many-to relationship, but neither of those have to have a relationship between it for it to exist.
Right.
So going forward, this is what our system is looking like. So this is going to be the validation page. We're going to have the officer enter a username and password. For this username, we did their last name and then a badge number, and then any password that they make up. Then you go to submit, and that's going to take you to the home page.
So on the home page, we didn't want to make it too cluttered, so we just focused on some of the major things, some quick features that an officer would want to click on as soon as they get into the citation system, whether that be contacting another officer, contacting technical support, but the biggest thing being in creating a new citation, because that is what they do most of the time on the job. So do you want to talk about the citation?
Yeah, sure. So this is what our citation sheet looks like. So this is a replica of what the Texas Department of State uses for their traffic citations. So the officer will go through and fill it out. And then, like we were talking about earlier in reducing error, if they forget to fill out any blanks, the system will not accept the submission, but it will display an error message and highlight the field that they need to resubmit it. The officer will then hit submit, and it will print out a copy of the ticket that they can hand to the citizen.
And it will go straight to the court system and the Waco Police Department database, where it will be stored for at least 7 years.
Just another way we're trying to increase efficiency while reducing human error.
Absolutely. So moving on to design and implementation, one of the biggest ways in testing and implementing this project is testing to make sure that a Waco police officer can do a walkthrough. So going through a mock situation of where they're pulling someone over, getting their credentials, getting their driver's license, entering their login credentials to the main page, and so that they can access it and go through it. So I think having a walkthrough and testing is just the biggest part of implementation, because the more you test, the more we can be assured of our project and the system that we have overall developed. But yeah.
And that's where we would just like to thank you for taking the time to listen to our proposal. We really do think that this e-citation system will save the Baylor Police Department both time and money while reducing errors. So that's why we think that this would be a great system to implement. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you.